into RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
Hello, all you Rowdies fans out there. This is James Knowles coming at you with the RBLR Sports RBLR Rowdies version, and I am here today with Leo. We've got a couple games to cover and one game to preview. Leo, you were able to watch these games. I was out of town, so I'm mostly going to be relying on you to tell me how the games went because I was unable to see them before we got into the podcasting booth here. So before we run down, at least tell me how you're feeling and tell me what your levels are for excitement.
Well, obviously, I'm feeling really good. I always try to feel really good every day. But in regards to the Rowdies, it was a up and down weekend, mainly up because obviously we won at home against Charleston, but we also lost to Pittsburgh. But I feel like the fact that not only did we qualify for the playoffs, but we clinched, the top spot in our division. So I think the overall good news outweighs that loss against Pittsburgh. So I'm excited for the Rowdies moving forward. And I'm excited for what this team has to offer, as we get closer to the end of the season.
Okay, well, I like to hear that. And you were there, I believe, on the Thursday night win against Charleston. So obviously you will have an even better in-depth some analysis to give us for that one. And as I said to everybody, I was out of town, so I will have exactly zero analysis. But that's perfectly fine because we do have plenty to cover here and somebody who knows what we're talking about. As you said, we did clinch our division. We have won it already at this point in the season, and we did that by setting a single season points record. We are on 61 right now, and that is without a couple more games to go. So, congratulations all around, in addition to the clinching of the actual top spot within our division. That's just a very good measure of how good this team is that we were able to do that, especially with all the teams that we have played so far this year that have proven themselves to be very tricky to deal with. And I'm just super happy about that personally now that, I have seen all of this and been updated as to where we are. And the other thing that we do have to mention, obviously we do our predictions every week, but neither of us got any of our predictions correct. So I guess that we are batting down again after we were doing kind of well as a team to actually get some good scores. But I don't know. We'll have to see how it goes.
We weren't kind of well. You were doing really well, James. I haven't guessed a correct prediction in a long time. Excuse me, but yeah, our predictions were way off. Maybe off by 1 or 2 goals, but we didn't get it correct. And I think we both predicted either a tie or a win against Pittsburgh, and we're both wrong at that too. So hopefully we, get our predictions on a roll again. Well, at least I hope so because I haven't, like I said, predicted the correct score in a while. So I really need to work on that. But because playing more games, at least I believe it's playing more games moving forward to get some predictions right.
And the good thing is, I think that we both know how a couple of these games will turn out, even if we don't know the actual score. We won't get into all of them, but we will cover at least one today. And before we do that, we need to make sure that everybody knows what happened this past week. So I will leave that to my good buddy here, Leo, to get into the analysis and actually tell our fine listeners exactly what the Rowdies did.
Exactly. So as we mentioned already, the Rowdies did beat Charleston Battery by 4-2 on Thursday night. But I think 3 days later on Sunday, we did lose to Pittsburgh Riverhounds 2-0. But we need to start out with the lineups on the first game against Charleston. We've seen that the usual lineup, of the strong lineup that New Collins has been going with, a consistent lineup that has been, used during that win streak. Obviously, Evan Laurel in the keeper position. We have the usual back three, the ones that, maintain that defensive unit with Forrest Lasso, Aaron Guillen, Jordan Scarlett. The only change I believe we've seen, actually 2 changes. We've seen Juan Tejada come in the lineup and Connor Anley come in the lineup as well. But the midfield 4 was Lewis Hilton and Lawrence White in the center. You have Dalgard on his left, Connor Anley on his right. And then the front 3, you had Guenzani and Tejada mainly as strikers, and Leo Fernandez just behind them. But obviously, during the game, from what I seen Leo Fernandez just a little bit to the left, just a little bit to the wide, a little more central. Juan Tejada coming in a little more central. So, this it was a little bit of rotation from Neil Collins in this game. But I think the way he rotated the squad was kind of similar to how they've been playing recently. If Steven Dos Santos or Jan Ecker were in that spot, I feel like the Rowdies would have had a similar outcome. It would have definitely still been a win. But the way they played that game, obviously, when you field more starting players in your starting 11, you're going to play better. But compared to the Pittsburgh Riverhounds game, we've seen more rotation. Obviously, we still have yet to see the appearance of Raika Rizarina. We'll get more to that later. But yeah, so although we did keep the same keepers and same back line, we did bring in Steven Dos Santos and Zach Steinberger into the lineup. Our captain, Sebastian Guenzani, did get some rest. Dalgar got some rest as well. Lawrence White getting a little bit of rest as well. But that means players like I just mentioned, Zach Steinberger came in. Connor Anley gets another shot at trying to make a campaign, I guess, maybe make a shot to reclaim that right wing back spot that he started earlier in the season, but has slowly drifted out the starting lineup to Sebastian Dahlgaard, who has been doing an excellent job in that role. But these two starting lineups, you've seen the difference it makes when a lineup that has more starting players and a lineup that doesn't. I remember at the beginning of the season, James, you and I were talking about how the crazy amount of depth this team has, and although I think the starting lineup in the second game didn't really play bad, I feel like if you play your strongest team, I'm pretty sure Pittsburgh would know this too deep down the side. I think it's a different ball game. Those chances that were missed, I feel like the Rowdies are put away with the starting lineups. For example, if you start Sebastian Guenzani, he doesn't miss the chances that some of the Rowdies players missed against Pittsburgh. And as we've seen against Charleston, he bagged, I believe it was 2 goals that game. And, he just gets himself in 2 great goal scoring opportunities that we've seen all season long. And although he couldn't contribute that against Pittsburgh because he only made a 30-minute appearance at substitute, but that game against Charleston, I really loved what I seen. Like you said, James, I was there. It was a really great moment. They were creating chances up and down. One thing I would be concerned about, though, is the defensive moments during that game. We've seen some, I don't know if you've seen it, James, but it might have made the Sports Center top 10 for the wrong reasons. Jordan Scarlett gets a pass back to Evan Laurel, and it just went really, really bad from there. Evan Laurel tries to get the pass, but unfortunately he couldn't make it. He tries to clear it, doesn't make it, and the ball just goes into the net. And Jordan Scarlett, it went down as his own goal. Then the second goal, another defensive mistake for us. Also caught the position, a quick counter attack. No one was guarding the person on the back post, and then I feel like those are 2 goals that could have been avoided, especially with the Rowdies defense that we've been seeing for the past month or so. But besides that, like I said, 2 different lineups. 2 different games. One ended in a win. One ended in a loss. But overall, I don't think the Rowdies should really, pay attention to the Pittsburgh game, because although they did have rotation in that game, they did create chances to go ahead first, create chances to equalize the game, or create chances to even win the game. And once again, silly defensive mistakes against Pittsburgh. That is one area where I would be concerned because, you have the same back line and Aaron Guillen, Forrest Lasso, and Jordan Scarlett. And Forrest Lasso, he concedes a penalty where we usually see, in a position where we usually see him stand up a player. Although people could say it was soft or the Pittsburgh player, he tripped over his own foot or whatever. But either way, we know Forrest Lasso usually gives himself a little bit of space. Likes to relax a little bit, likes to take on players one-on-one, but he doesn't really dive in or take on chances like that. But he did so this game against Pittsburgh, and unfortunately, he did pay for the consequences. That second goal, which was a penalty, I think that was really the goal to put the game away for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I didn't see the games, but what I was able to catch were at least the highlights, and it definitely seemed, everything that you just said was part of the build-up, of course, but it seemed. The other thing was just these are the kinds of mistakes that, this team has not really made over the course of this season or even last season. Maybe, a little blip in our that dip in form that we had over the course of the summer. But I don't know that I've seen something quite so calamitous as those events that led up to us conceding the goals that ultimately we lost with. Yeah, it was not our best day at the back, unfortunately.
Yeah, it wasn't, for a couple of days. Although we did make some goal line clearances and all that good stuff. At the end of the day, if it's hard being a defender because if you make one mistake, it costs you a whole game. If you're an attacker and you make a mistake, you'll have another chance and another chance,
Of
another
course,
chance
right.
to make it up for that. So, but for the majority of the season, I would say for the majority of the season, I would say the defense has been rock solid. So, I'll give them a pass for this. And also, against Charleston, like I said, we just seen one of the strongest lineups that the Riders used all season. Obviously they bench Ekra and Steven Dos Santos, and we don't got to say how much important those two players are for this team. The side-to-side play, the crosses coming in the box, the counterattacks, the possession from the Riders was spot on that game. Was the reason why they had 4 goals. Whenever Charleston would score against them or try to push their backs on the wall against the Rowdies, they replied instantly with either a goal or some really great chances. And against Pittsburgh, I mean, it's a place where the Riders haven't won yet. We haven't really took 3 points from when we play over there at Pittsburgh. So when you put not your strongest lineup in, it makes it even harder to gain all 3 points. It even makes it hard to just come out with 1 point because we know playing at Pittsburgh for any team isn't really an easy game. So the fact that they did create chances and there were a couple bad calls from the referees, I think the Riders shouldn't look too much, shouldn't hurt themselves too much with that loss against the Riverhounds.
Okay, well, I mean, I think that is a very good takeaway for not only, the Rowdies players who are going to be out there and they have to do that thing that all players have to do when, you mess up. You got to just, all right, well, we'll forget about it and it's in the past and we're going to move on. That's the way that you kind of make sure that you get back into your right mindset and you're not focusing on all the problems that could unfortunately go on to create further problems in the future. But it is also good for the fans, I would say, because, we can look at the things that you just mentioned, those bad mistakes that led to a couple of goals. And if they're flukes, flukes do happen. But the thing about them is obviously a fluky nature. You can't expect them to happen over and over. It's something that might happen once every couple games. It might be something that happens once in one game and once in the next game, but it's unlikely that it's going to continue to happen. And it's also something, obviously, where if Jordan Scarlett made this pass where Evan Laura was unable to ultimately gather it, and it led to the goal the first goal that we gave up against Charleston, then maybe let's be a little bit more careful about that in the future. And the one thing that everybody kind of tells you when you're a kid and you might not have as good a touch as when you get to be an older player who might be considered for a professional spot, like obviously all of the Rowdies players have, then they tell you that you need to, when you pass it back to your goalkeeper, pass it so that it will go outside of the goal if he happens to miss it. Because, sometimes that does happen. And then if they miss the ball and it rolls under their foot, then it's going to go wide and not into your net. If we have to go back to that, then fair enough. Sometimes that is the case, that you just got to make sure that we're doing all the best things possible to put us in the best possible positions to win the game in the end. And maybe that is one more thing that we need to add to put ourselves in those positions. And I assume, if they don't ultimately work on something that is specific to passing back or just keeping concentration in those situations, then yes, there is a change that you can implement at least to that one, and then we wouldn't have to worry about it. So I'm glad that is something that we can take away as fans and listeners and all watchers of the game here.
I 100% agree with you. And you said the word fluke. I'm pretty sure that's what this was. Something that usually goes viral for the wrong reasons because, you don't really see it happen in professional sports. So, yeah, nothing really to look into except, don't let it happen again, especially when playoffs come around. With all that being said, James, you want to take us into our next segment, our questions segment?
Absolutely. Yeah, I can do that here because as a person who did not see the games, I do have a lot of questions, and I want to speak to somebody who has a lot of answers, and that is my partner here who did get to attend one of the games and obviously watch the other one.
Yes,
so
sir.
The first question that I had here was any opinion on what those starting lineups indicated, and it seems like you already covered this in pretty good detail, and I wonder if you have anything else that you feel you might have left off just so that we could get through it a little bit more as we moved into what went wrong or right in these two games.
Yeah, I mean, just to be very, very broad and very short, I think the two lineups indicate that Neil Collins is finally trying to rest his players. We talked about it before we started recording, James, in our pre-show meeting that games are coming in thick and fast, especially in October. So many games are happening. You're playing a lot of games with shorter days to rest. So New Collins is starting to, see who could come in, who could do a good job. If, I need to rest this player, I need to rest that player, which player can be either nearly on the same level, provide me something different and something to think about when I, move into the playoffs and I need that kind of super sub role. Who can I rely on? So I think that's what Starling has to indicate is that both a rest and rotation for players, and also who can Neil Collins rely on when a player from the bench is called upon to enter the game.
Gotcha. All right. Well, that is good to know. And everybody, let's keep that in mind as we move forward, hopefully with these last couple of games that might be ones that appear more winnable from the start. And we will move into the next question now. And, you did kind of cover this again in a little bit of detail, but if we could get some more broad strokes or if we could get some more anything that was left off. My question is just with the Charleston game, obviously we did, give up that goal, and we'll get into any possible areas of concern from the game, but what went right with the Charleston game, and what did you see that might be something that we could replicate in future games?
Well, I think the fact that we spread out the field so well and we take advantage of Connor Antley's pace and Leo Fernandez's skill. I think what went right in the first game was, seeing Leo Fernandez operate as a number 10 because he would go on the left, go on the right. He'll provide that extra support for Connor Antley or Sebastian Guenzani on the left. But I think one of the main things that went really, really well for the Rowdies was, like I said, spreading the game out. I've seen so many times Connor Antley on the right-hand side or Dalgar on the left-hand side just putting in crosses in the box, taking advantage of Tejadas and Gonzalez's positioning, in the box or around the box, and they did really, really well getting into getting into the 18 by going through the sides or, doing really well on the counter. The defense, doing really well to not just, pass it through the middle, but also give it out wide. So I think the taking advantage of the areas on the left and right flanks really, really helped out the Rowdies. And I think that's what really got them most of the goals. We've seen crosses in the box, we've seen quick counters, and also the constant pressing from Lawrence White and Lewis Hilton. When you have someone like Lawrence White, he is never going to not stop running. He just runs all day long. I don't know how you have that high of a stamina when I look at Lawrence White. He just keeps on running and running he presses. When you have the ball, he joins the attack. And then if you lose the ball, he's the first man that's running the opposite way, trying to defend his goal. So I was really impressed with him as well. But I think that's really what went right for the Charleston game, that energy in the midfield and also delivering the ball out wide so you could get good crosses in the box.
Gotcha. And then, again, this is a similar thing, but what went wrong in the Pittsburgh game? Because obviously we were unable to get any chances that led to goals here. It's a stark difference from a game where we just scored 4. And, I'm sure some of it comes down to the lineup, but there might be some more as well.
So yeah, obviously when you bench your captain and Sebastian Guenzani, you're not gonna have that same goal scoring threat that you usually do. Even if you have Steven Dos Santos, we know Steven Dos Santos is a better player when he's playing with Sebastian Guenzani and vice versa. Guenzani is a better player when he's playing with Steven Dos Santos. When you take that out, you're already at a disadvantage, especially someone with Guenzani who's just scoring for fun right now. He's in really great form. He's in a really good place right now. He's a captain of this team. He loves playing for this team. So when you take basically the heart out of the starting lineup and you try to find someone to replace him, you're really at a disadvantage. But I was really impressed with the Rowdies, absorbing that early pressure from Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh did start out as a dominant team. They were the ones on the opposition's half. They were the ones with the possession. But the Rowdies did really good at counterattack. They did create some really good opportunities off of set pieces. We had a penalty, which was some really smart play from Steven Dos Santos, Leo Fernandez and Juan Tojada making some good connections, making some good plays. There were chances where we hit the crossbar, and I feel like Leo Fernandez scores that penalty. We tie the game 1-1. It's a different ball game. You have a belief that you could go away with the point from Pittsburgh after a short amount of days of rest, which I think works in favor for the Rowdies instead of dropping all 3 points. But you look at these kind of moments where you could turn the game, and at the end of the day, it's not your strongest lineup, and yet you should have won the game. So I think that says a lot about the Rowdies. But as far as what went wrong, I think it's just not taking advantage of those chances that we seen Pittsburgh, who did take advantage whenever they got close. And I have a question for you, James. In this game, I forgot who headed the ball, but it was a set piece. A cross came in. Forrest Laszlo redirected it into the center of the box, and I forgot which player headed it in, but he headed the ball, hit the post, and It went down and the goalie caught it. So it went inside the goal from the replays that the broadcast showed, but the referees did not call it. And even the commentator and the both commentators, they both said, from that angle it looks like a goal. So I want to ask you, why isn't there VAR or goal line technology in the USL? Is it like financial reasons or is it something else?
Well, I think I do have an answer here, but really quickly. So this is just something where we had a chance to get into the game, and that was called back, and the referees kind of blew our shot essentially to actually have that opportunity and maybe get back into this one.
Yeah, this would have been the first goal of the game. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, so it would have set up an entirely different game entirely, and maybe I could get more entirelys in there. But I can tell you the way that CONCACAF does it right now, and I assume that this applies to the same level here. So CONCACAF is the governing body for all of the international soccer and then all of the international club competitions in North America. And they are currently doing, obviously, the World Cup qualifiers. I'm sure that most people have seen that the U.S. last night just lost to Panama, while Mexico, I think, are still rolling and doing pretty well. But, these contrasting fortunes are all going on in games where these stadiums are actually at a point where some of them have the ability to get in the VAR or goal line technology and actually set it up. A couple of them are not. So what CONCACAF has decided at their level is they are not going to use VAR in this World Cup qualifying round. So I believe that, this will affect any teams that move forward from the, in future tournaments. But what will happen here is, unfortunately, if the stadiums and for the teams involved do not have the capability, then you can't put the VAR in there, and obviously that would put other teams at a disadvantage if they are not able to use it in their own games. So they just said blanket no VAR, and I guess that's probably the best solution here, because if the U.S. win a game via VAR that they have in a stadium in Austin, but they go and they lose an away game in, let's say, El Salvador, and that comes down to a lack of VAR, then I think that there would be plenty of protests, obviously. If we get back to the USL Championship, I believe that this is coming into play again here, because there are some teams who play in stadiums that do not have the capabilities to do that. So Al Lang is obviously a very good stadium for anyone who's been there. And I think that there would be, as far as I'm aware, the capability to put that in there and to actually get the referees to do the analysis that will say, hey, this was a goal, this wasn't a goal, whatever it is. But if you look around the league, there are plenty of teams that unfortunately do not play in stadiums that would be likely to have that capability. So I think Oakland right now are playing in a stadium that is mainly used for high school football. And, this is something that we talked about when we were supposed to play, or when we did play the Oakland Roots. We were going to, play on a field that had just recently been renovated so that it could be played on. And the fake grass, the turf, it was bright green. They had trouble getting it. They had trouble laying it down. And it was, kind of a mess. I think that it would be hard for the Oakland Roots to go out and to get the people who can do the VAR analysis, pay the referees to do that, and to get in the technology to, align it up on the goal line and then send that up to the booth where they can do that. And, everything else that goes into it that we might not even know about. Unfortunately, if they can't afford all of the technology, they can't afford to hook it up, they can't afford the people to actually view it, then that is probably why I would say that the league has just decided, okay, if we can have it here, we can't have it there. It's most likely the best case for everyone that we just continue to not have it anywhere.
That's fair and also very interesting. I like the point you made where, like, let's say Al Lang has it, but you look at stadiums like Oakland Roots or other teams who can't really have VAR and goal line technology. It kind of provides a little bit of controversy, like you mentioned, because if you go to Al Lang, you could lose a game due to VAR, and then if the Rowdies play you could also lose a game because you don't have VAR or goal line technology. So
exactly,
so that makes sense. I was wondering because from the replays it looked like the ball went in, and I'm just waiting for the referee to look at his watch, as we've seen in Premier League, to decide for the goal line technology goals, but none of that happened. And I realized early in the season that there was no VAR either. So I was just curious about that because if they did have VAR or goal line technology, the Riders are ahead 1-0, but they don't, so we gotta live with that. I'm pretty sure the Riders have been cognizant of that since the beginning of the season. We take it as it is, and we move on.
Yeah, that's unfortunately the only thing that we can do. And, the way that the game was played forever was referees are going to just make mistakes at certain times. And I think that we're moving towards a game where that is becoming less acceptable because there are things like when France qualified for the World Cup because they beat Ireland while Thierry Henry had a handball in the box that led to them scoring. And, and Frank Lampard scores against Germany, but it doesn't happen, or it isn't counted in the World Cup because the ball bounced over the line and then bounced back out. And, these are egregious mistakes with really high stakes, everything on the line, so to speak, when you get to a World Cup. But it is very difficult, of course, to balance whether, which things need to be counted for VAR and how thin the margins have to be. I think that if something is just, okay, the ball is definitely over the line and there was nothing against it, maybe we could get in some VAR for that. And hopefully at some point USL will have the resources to install that all across the league. But for right now, this is what we're dealing with, as you said. And that will take us then to the next question, because I don't want to belabor the point of, the stadiums that we've got, because we do have some good ones, but we do have some teams, of course, that are working their way up, and that's perfectly fine. The Rowdies were in that position at some point as well. My next question for you, though, Leo, is the Charleston game. You mentioned some things that were bad there, one of them obviously being the Jordan Scarlett back pass that led to an own goal. But other than that, were there any big or small items of concern to take away from that game? Anything that you noticed that, maybe they need to work on that as well? Like I said, come up with a way around playing balls back to the goalkeeper that might lead to further own goals.
I think that was just a fluke, so I wouldn't be too concerned about that. What I would be concerned about, and this might be a good kind of concern, is maybe starting Deon Harris, because when he came on the field as a sub, he was totally torturing that right hand side against Charleston. Every single ball he got, he beat the defender, putting a great cross. Obviously, no one at the end of it. It's not his fault. He was doing his job to put in crosses, doing really good passes, speeding up the tempo of the game. So that's one concern I would look at. Consider starting Deon Harris, or maybe putting him on earlier. Even if that's one concern we could look at in case the game isn't really going the direction you want it to be. And as far as playing out the back, I know Jordan Scarlett will probably never do that again. I'm pretty sure Evan Laura will probably never make that same mistake again as well.
Right.
But if you do want to prevent it, maybe have, like, we've seen Leo Fernandez high up the field playing a number 10 role, but didn't really do his defensive duties that much. So maybe whoever you have as a number 10 or the extra center mid, have him draw back as well. Get more options to your back three. That way they won't have to go back to Evan Lauro. Obviously, if you do, we both know Evan Lauro is really reliable and really good with the ball and sweet. But if you don't want to do that, just simple as having more midfielders drop back for options and having wingbacks stay out wide, so you can always have the option of playing out wide or through the middle safely.
Yeah, so that is probably the best thing to think about there. And that will take me then into the next question, which is the same thing here. Are there any items of concern to take away from the Pittsburgh game other than those ones that you already noted?
Yeah, so obviously I mentioned the mistakes in the back line with Forrest Lasso. And I think one concern I would be aware about is that, let's say for some reason, which I hope not, I need to knock on wood somewhere. I can't find, okay, here it is. Let's hope that Guenzani, for some reason cannot play a game in the playoffs. And for some reason he's out, whether it's due to injury or something else, he's just not available to play. And you have someone like Tejada or Adebayo Smith, or someone ready to, basically the next man up. You have the next man up come, whether that be Tejada, Adebayo Smith, Deon Harris, whoever you Collins decides to call upon. What I would be concerned is how the lack of getting to good positions. I'm not saying these players are exact, should be playing exactly like Sebastian Guenzani, because we know Guenzani is a one-of-a-kind player. You don't really have too much true goal scorers or natural goal scorers like Guenzani in just basically the overall sport of soccer. But these players, they need to work on getting to better positions. Doing more work off the ball instead of just staying central between two defenders. Where if you get the ball, you immediately have two defenders on you. It's gonna be harder for you to turn around and pass the ball, or turn around to go by the defender. So I think an area of concern is those players within the team stepping up, not really making the most of their chances when it comes to playoff time, or the remaining games we have in the season.
Okay, I think that's something to keep an eye on. I really like that that takeaway. It is. Rowdies are a very good team at this level, as everybody knows, and the Rowdies are filled with very good players from front to back and even on the bench. But there are still things to keep an eye out for, and there are still things that we need to keep in mind. Well, not us, I should say, but there are still things for the players to keep in mind to make sure that they keep their concentration to so that concentration will be kept to a level where they can win all the games that they need to. But yeah, good to know. And as I said, good for everybody to just remember that unfortunately even teams as good as we are at this level can be fallible. But there is one more question that I want to get to here. And we want to cover this for everybody else, and you can keep an eye on this as we go. We've got 4 more games left in the regular season, and then obviously the playoffs, we shall see how many games we have there. But right now, we want to let everybody know what records can be beaten as we go through the season. So the record for shutouts is 15. We currently have 12. I'm going to go through the rest of our remaining games really quickly so that everybody understands where we're coming from. We have a home game coming up this Friday against the New York Red Bulls 2 team. Now, personally, I would love to see a shutout there regardless of this record, because I think that giving up goals against the New York Red Bulls 2 team is just it's kind of beneath us, let us say, at this point in the season. After a 6-0 win over them last time, after a 6-0 win over them last time, we should probably just not be giving up goals, at least to that team. Then the next game after, it's 5 days after that one, and we play Miami FC at home. Now, that is a home game. It's going to be more difficult to get a shutout there because it is Miami FC, obviously, but it is not impossible. So if we could do that, that would help us out. The next 2 games are both away. On the 23rd, which is 3 days after the Miami game, we play Loudoun United. So we will be up there in Virginia to do that. And hopefully we can get a shutout there because, again, that is a team filled with mostly teenagers and reserve players for DC United in MLS. And I believe that we should be able to hold them out. And then the last game is 7 days after that, October 30th in Las Vegas, a game that I will actually get to go to. Very cool. But it is against Las Vegas Lights. And for those who don't know, Las Vegas Lights are currently the reserve team for LAFC, another MLS team. LAFC has not been, let's say, forthcoming enough with their roster to send Las Vegas Lights the players they need to win consistently. And I believe if we do get out to Las Vegas and, if we need any certain type of result, which I'm sure by that point we will, to try and maintain some of our advantages, then a shutout should definitely be something that we can handle, and I hope that we will be able to do that. If we do get shutouts over the course of those games and we get up to 3, then we will have beaten the record because, as I said, the Rowdies currently have 12. So remember, 3 more shutouts, then we have that record too, and I think that that would be an awesome testament to just how good this Rowdies defense is. We should at least be able to tie it, in my opinion, but we'll see how that goes. The next one that I want to mention really quickly, Sebastian Guenzani. Per the Rowdies, he is 5 goals back from the record, 4 goals scored for this club overall. The record is held by Georgi Hristov, who has 60. And as I said, he is 5 behind. Sebastian Guenzani is on 55. So we play those couple teams coming up here. New York Red Bulls 2, probably a game we could get some goals. Miami FC, hopefully a game we get some goals, certainly. Loudoun United, another game we should get some goals. And Las Vegas United, yet again, one that we can expect to get some goals. And I believe if he can get more over the course of these 4 games, he gets himself closer to 60. And then maybe once we get into the playoffs, he overtakes Hristov. and he can do it this season. So just keep an eye out on those as the season goes along and we get to a close for the regular season, because there's a lot to go on and it's really, really exciting for us Rowdies fans. But that will do it for our question segment, even if the last one wasn't mostly questioning. But we do have some hot takes to get to. And Leo, you have one to start us off with here.
Yeah. Before I get to my hot take, I want to say, this is probably the best schedule for the Rowdies in regards to breaking records. You just made those teams that we should be able to score goals against and also keep clean sheets against. I feel like I'm more optimistic for Guenzani breaking the goal scoring record for the Rowdies than us, breaking the clean sheet records, retiring the clean sheet record for the league, because we've seen teams that we should have left that 0 score against us. So that's something to worry about. But hey, you never know. Maybe the Rowdies, I'm pretty sure teams won't tell you that they're paying attention to records, which I'm pretty sure they are, but hopefully that gives them motivation to break these records. But yeah, going to our hot take. My hot take of the week is simple. Basically, I'm saying that the Rowdies should start Arrows Arena for one game, especially with so many games coming up, and you rotate players. Although goalkeepers don't really, aren't usual, going up the field, going into the 6-yard box to score a goal. They're busy staying in their own 18-yard box, so they don't really do much running. But they still gotta stay focused the entire game and control the back line. However, I do believe Ryko Arrows Arena should start for at least one game before heading into the playoffs, because we know when playoffs comes around, you need every player to be healthy physically and also mentally. And I really have a soft spot for Ryko Arrows Arena, because I feel like he's just a really all-around good person, and for the whole season he's been a number 2, which is a hard role to play, especially in the USL. I mean, you and I, James, both know that it's not the biggest, or not biggest, but not the first division to play in the United States. So being a backup, for in the USL is not really one of the best, kind of roles you want to have in the sport. But the fact that he's been there, been solid. We've seen the smiles to Rowdy social media of Arrows Arena during training, during games, how he stays with the team. He looks like he's for the team, and his brother plays with, another professional sports team with the Tampa Bay Rays. But I feel like heading into playoffs, you need at least the majority of your players to be happy and healthy, both mentally and physically. And I feel like if you start Ryko Arrows Arena, just to give them the opportunity, whether it's home or an away game, you give them the opportunity to be between the in the 18-yard box. You get him in there, you let him know what it feels like to be starting goalkeeper for one game, and then going to the playoffs. He's thinking, hey, I played one game for this team. Finally got to show my coach, my players, and most importantly the fans what I can do for this team whenever I'm called upon. So yeah, that's my hot take for the week. Basically, just start Ryko Arrows Arena for one game. I feel like it's great for himself and also the team heading into the playoffs.
I like that too, and I do think that Ryko Arrows Arena has earned something like that with all of his trouble getting playing time this season. Obviously, Evan Loro has been absolutely outstanding, but something we mentioned before was also with the Cuban national team when they were supposed to go and play, and their game was canceled because they couldn't figure out how to do, meet all the COVID protocols required to complete their travel from one country to another when they all gathered in one place. And I hate that was the way that it ultimately fizzled out for them. But I would love to see him get some time, because definitely, as you said, he deserves it. My hot take is very quick. It's something that I had mentioned very briefly already, but I want to delve into it slightly longer than that. And it is just that I believe that, while it's not a good thing the Rowdies lost to Pittsburgh, because obviously we could use those 3 points and be ahead of Phoenix right now. But I think there's a silver lining to it. And it's just that a reminder to the players that, we are doing very well overall as a team, and especially in the last 2 months. There's a lot of good going on, but it can all be taken away very quickly. A game of soccer can be, it can go any way on any given day. There are obviously big upsets like the one that I just mentioned where Panama beat the U.S. That was an away game, but it's still something that a lot of American fans would have been shocked to see, including myself. And the Rowdies, Pittsburgh is a good team coming up against the Rowdies, but they just need to make sure that they are going to stay fully concentrated every game, because you don't want to slip up and blow it in a game that you definitely should win. And I think that this will remind them that can still happen. So you got to make sure that you're on the top of your game. And that's all that I wanted to say about the Pittsburgh final before we move into the standings.
Yeah, maybe it's a good thing, blessing in disguise, as they say. Maybe it's a good thing that the Rowdies lost this game, because it might be a potential wake-up call to say, yeah, we've been winning all these games, but we can't really, lose ourselves from breaking the season-breaking record with the amount of points you gain, with the consecutive wins you have up, and no more records to break. You need to keep yourself grounded, and certainly with this Rowdies team, I'm pretty sure they will do that. And I know I said earlier that they shouldn't look, into too much within the loss, but it's definitely a wake-up call and something for the Rowdies to show that, hey, this could happen in the playoffs, even with our strongest lineup if we have a bad game.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You got to make sure that those bad games are all out of your system by the time you get to the postseason, because that is win or go home at that point. So we can't allow ourselves to slip up then. But yeah, so we will move into the standings now. The standings for the Tampa Bay Rowdies and the rest of the league. We are currently the head of the Atlantic Division, and oh, by the way, that is clinched. I know that we have said it already, but we are there, and nobody can knock us off from that perch at this point. So that's all well and good, because it secures home advantage for at least, I believe, the first round of games into the playoffs. We currently have 61 points from 28 games. Pittsburgh and Charlotte are now right behind us, and Miami is in last place. It is Pittsburgh and Charlotte who are currently sitting on the points, I should say, 51 points from 29 games. Excuse me, I was looking at the wrong line. And then 49 points from 28 games for Charlotte. Miami is right behind them, though, on 48 points. If we look around the league, Louisville currently has 55 points from 28 games played. Birmingham Legion have 53 points from 28 games played. Both of them have also qualified for the playoffs. And then the other teams that we should take a look at, El Paso out in the Mountain Division, had 55 points from 27 games, have qualified for the playoffs. And our current biggest rivals, I should say, Phoenix Rising, they have 62 points from 28 games, one more than us. So I believe that would give them home advantage if it did come down to a final like last season. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, of course, because we are not even in the playoffs at the moment, let alone anywhere near the Eastern Conference final or the final itself. That takes us through there. But this is what we got to deal with for the rest of the teams in the league. And Leo, I have a question for you here, that this is something I believe you have some answers to go through related to the standings. But do you think that the current top four teams in the Atlantic Division will be the teams that end up going to the playoffs? And those are, of course, the Rowdies in first, and then Pittsburgh in second, Charlotte, as I said, in third, and Miami in fourth.
Yeah, well, one thing we do know, James, you and I, is that Rowdies and Riverhounds will be in the postseason. But you look at that third and fourth spots, you got Charlotte Independence and the Miami FC. Charlotte has 49 points from 28 games. Miami has 48 points from 28 games. The team behind them, Charleston Battery, they have 34 games from 27 points. And although they do have a game in hand, let's say they win their game in hand, right? They'll be at 37. They'll still be 11 points behind the fourth place spot, the Miami FC in the Atlantic Division, which, as we all know, only the top four teams qualify for the postseason, the playoffs. So this question, I do believe the top four teams right now, the way they are, these four teams will go. But in regards to who finishes where, it's still up in the air. Because if Charlotte wins their game in hand, they'll be on 52 points, and they'll be in second place above Pittsburgh. Miami win their game in hand, they'll be on the same amount of points as Pittsburgh. So now it's a battle of where will Pittsburgh, Charlotte, and the Miami FC finish within the top four. But I do believe those four teams that I just named, with the Rowdies, Riverhounds, Independence, and the Miami FC, I think those will be the four teams from the Atlantic Division that will go on to the postseason.
All right. Well, I think that just about wraps up the standings, because I don't disagree with anything that you just said. The Charleston Battery are not quite what they were last season, and I guess that is to our benefit. But I'm sure they will be back in future too. That's the other thing about this level of soccer is that, we see teams kind of come and go in terms of whether or not they are good or bad. And there's only so much funding that ultimately goes down to this level because of the, the requirements that you have to have for players to be on, your team, the salaries that are there and what they can get on those contracts. I think that Charleston will definitely have a lot more to say in the future. And we will have to keep an eye out for them then, but luckily, probably not now. We have to go through next hour preview, and we will do that just about with the Friday game. It should be against New York Red Bulls 2, the Baby Bulls, the infamous Baby Bulls. We play them at 7:30, and this is our second to last home game, so I would suggest everyone is going to want to go out there. I certainly would like to go out there and maybe catch a couple more goals similar to the last time that they played. But yeah, we have a couple more things to get through here that Leo, you had some thoughts on.
Yeah. So as you said, James, people should get their tickets for these games because we both know that they won 6-0 last time. Like I said, it won't happen again, but let's people need to go out because one, the Rowdies need the most support they possibly can heading into the postseason. Besides that, I think you nailed it on with the preview, James. New York Red Bulls 2, they're eliminated from the playoffs. We played the team 3 times. We won each and every single time. New York Red Bulls 2, I'm not sure if they're finishing at the bottom of our table. They won't finish in 8th place in Latin Division, but they will finish in 7th. Again, this is a second team from the New York Red Bulls who play in MLS. So, this team really, I think they're just playing finish out the season. I think I said to them last time we played them that they're just playing finish out the season. The Rowdies are playing obviously to break more records and to, just get that number 1 spot overall in the USL.
And that will be very important to us as a team, again, so that we can try and make sure that we secure home advantage for all future playoff games. And to cover really quickly, the players that we should keep an eye out on, obviously this will depend on which players ultimately show up for this game from the MLS team. So Major League Soccer teams will often, send their players down for 1 game loan or whatever it is. And I believe that that did come into play against the Red Bulls one of these games. I don't know how much it will at this point, but we can keep an eye out on a couple of players that might show up. One of them, I would say, is John Tolkien. He's looking very good at the MLS level when he plays there. So if he shows up here, we should definitely know that left back will have a lot of time, or not a lot of time, but a lot of skill on the ball. And hopefully we don't give him a lot of time on the ball. A player that has been doing very well for the New York Red Bulls 2 this season is Jake Lacava. I have called him out as somebody to keep an eye on previously, and somebody who, sometimes his shooting is better than his dribbling, but he can definitely be very effective when he is moving forward one way or another. And our defense obviously should sure that he is handled and doesn't have that much time to do one or the other on the ball. Another player is Omar Sow. He has been playing for the New York Red Bulls 2 team mostly this year and was ultimately signed to a contract with the senior team. So, congratulations to him, but that means that it is somebody that we are going to have to keep an eye out on as a player that can come back and score against us. He has a couple of goals this season, and I believe that he's definitely got the pace that he could do that in any game over the course of the year. And then, again, this will depend on whether or not he shows up on loan from the first team. But Andres Reyes is a center back, and he's very good at this level too when he comes down to the New York Red Bulls too. And he's a much bigger guy than the rest of the Baby Bulls. I think that he's only 6'1", but he is very strong. So in that sense, we will definitely have to keep an eye out. Now to get to our last section here, we have another round of predictions, and we have one more chance to get back into the good graces here with the prediction gods, and I'm hoping that we do. Would you like to go first for this one, Leo, or would you like me to try and toss my hand out and see what we got?
I'll let you toss your hand out first, James. Go ahead.
All right. So, yeah, this one, again, was a 6-0 win last time, and I think that with the shutout record on the table for the Rowdies overall, it's something that we can possibly try and make happen. I am going to say that this is going to be a 3-0 win for the Rowdies.
gonna one up you on that. I'm gonna believe it's gonna be a 4-0 win.
4-0 win. Well, the good thing is both of us having the Rowdies giving away no goals, and obviously we would both be very happy to see that.
I just feel like it's a home game. We've been scoring. Besides, before Pittsburgh, we've been scoring. A good amount of goals. You playing against your home crowd with a good lineup against a New York Red Bulls team that really isn't playing for really anything besides finishing out the season. I think Riders are in a good position to score many goals on their home turf.
All right. Well, that is good to point out. And speaking of clean sheets, to get into our one more thing, I would just like to say that you guys are missing out if you have not looked into the shirts that we are selling right now. They are for our defense, our lovely defense, who are not giving up any goals at this point except for one recent game, obviously. But there is a shirt going around that we are trying to sell. It is a collaboration with Cathedral Clothing. There will be a link to it in description, and all proceeds, again, go to the Play for More campaign, which is being put on by Forrest Lasso. It mentions how we have had so many clean sheets, and hopefully we will have the clean sheet record after the end of this season. It says that we are serving clean sheets in the same font as the Krispy Kreme donuts. So everybody, please go out and get those shirts, and just give to the campaign that Forrest Lasso has going, but also celebrate the fact that we are almost on the edge of having a shutout streak or a shutout record that is in our name. And there is something else that you have got to tell us about, Leo. There's something very interesting here about a teenager making some history in the U.S.
Yeah, like you just said, a teenager making history in the U.S. More specifically, he made history while playing for the USL. So a 13-year-old named Axel Kai, I believe that's how you pronounce his last name. It's either Key or Kai. Anyways, a 13-year-old, he made history in the U.S. for becoming the youngest ever professional soccer player. And in history, it's a historical moment. He did it last Friday in the USL for Real Monarchs, which is the Real Salt Lake second team. I believe the Real Monarchs are not heading to the playoffs, but it's a really, really big deal, not only for USL, but just US soccer in general, seeing, players this young coming into, the professional atmosphere within the US soccer system, having them compete with players who probably, been at professional level for a long time, and giving them the opportunity to do so. It's really big news. I think it's a really big step for, in the US. And I also think it's something really, really rare that you see. And, globally in the sport of soccer, seeing someone as young as 13 years old playing professional soccer. So, I was really shook when I seen this. When I seen the first pictures of Axel, I did not think he was 13. He looked like he was about 16 or 17 years old to me. But hey, according to all the, the news outlets, the sports news media, everyone's saying that he is indeed 13 years old. And congrats to Axel Kai for making that, historic achievement. Best of luck to him and his promising soccer career moving forward.
Absolutely. As you said, best of luck to him. We here at RBLR Rowdies definitely appreciate when teams play their youth players and give them the chance to, show that they have just as much skill as people above them in age. And I think that, this guy will have some type of career in soccer. I didn't even have a chance to watch, the small amount of time that he's played as a professional now. He's got a long way to go as a 13-year-old playing in, the USL Championship. I'm sure every 13-year-old soccer player would like to tell you that they're going to play for Real Madrid or Barcelona or Manchester United or Bayern Munich, whoever it is, someone in the Champions League. And I doubt that he would be any different in that area. But he would obviously have a long way to go to do so. And I hope that, as with everybody, he is successful and, achieves all of his dreams, because that is definitely a super cool accomplishment to have done at that age. But yeah, that is just awesome for him, and good on Real Monarchs as well for giving him that chance.
Yeah, and you said, we all wish him a very promising and healthy and, really, really consistent career moving forward. 13 years old. It's really, really impressive. Something you could brag about for your friends for the rest of your life, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, congrats once
I
again.
know what
to
I would be
Axel.
telling everybody if I had done that.
Exactly. That's the ultimate icebreaker you need for anything. Congrats to Axel from everyone here at RBLR Rowdies and RBLR Sports. And yeah, I think that's going to do it for this episode, with this week's show for the RBLR Rowdies. And once again, thank you, listeners. And as always, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you have social media on, we'll be there. We're at RBLR Sports. If you have Twitter, you want to get in contact with James and I, you can contact me on Twitter or, get in touch with me. I'm at _Leo Santos __. Don't forget those 2 underscores. James, where can these people find you?
Yeah, I am on Twitter at RBLRJamesK. And if you can't find either of us, if you don't want to search for either of us, you can also use the hashtag AskRBLR. And as always, we love taking questions. We love answering all of the all of the different questions that you guys have for us, because it gives us a lot more topics than what we just come up with on our own to go into, and we can obviously go down lots of soccer rabbit holes. So if you got any for us, just let us know.
And also, listeners, we do not charge for this podcast. We don't have no Patreons or anything like that. Although our producer Yuri said you should take advantage of this now before we do eventually charge. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our podcast. It's the best way you can support us. Best way you could, always stay in the loop with us. We're on Spotify, the iHeartRadio app. We're on Apple and Google Podcasts, YouTube, and other major podcast platforms. Anywhere you listen to your podcast, we'll definitely be there. If not, that's a Yuri problem, not a James and I problem, but get in touch with him. Besides that, without
call
further
us
ado,
for the producer.
Exactly, yeah. But do that, like and subscribe to us. And I think that's going to do it for both James and I here on this episode of RBLR Rowdies on RBLR Sports. As always, come on, you Rowdies. Let's go, Rowdies. Let's keep this momentum going. Let's get back on track. And, let's just keep on doing our thing, Rowdies.
Let's close out the regular season as strong as we can. Come on, you Rowdies.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.